Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and we've got an exciting day today for many reasons. Obviously, Tesla stock doing quite well. Giga Berlin finally opening up, Elon Musk handing over the first vehicles there, and also sharing some interesting insight on Tesla. Also got updates on Giga Texas, news out of China, the SEC and Tesla's back and forth, and a couple other items as well. Alright, the streak continues Tesla today with its sixth green day in a row, finishing up 7.9% to close at $993.98. This is the highest close for Tesla in over 2 months. This was the best day for Tesla since January. And with the NASDAQ only finishing up about 2% today, Tesla has now passed the NASDAQ in terms of year-to-date performance. Tesla down 5.9% since December 31st, the NASDAQ down 9.8%. So very impressive to see the overperformance from a high multiple stock like Tesla during a very challenging period for the market overall, and especially for growth stocks. All that being said, do want to bring in a little bit of context here because anytime Tesla does outperform to this degree, it's probably worth looking at other electric vehicle makers. Rivian today up nearly the same amount, NIO similar as well, XPeng and Lucid also above 5% each. So even though we do have the Giga Berlin opening today, I don't think it's just that. I think there is obviously some macro movement here as well, pulling up EV makers and other growth stocks as well. I mean, the ARK Innovation ETF today up about 5%. So it's not as simple as, oh, factory open, Tesla up 8%, even though it can kind of feel that way. Still, Tesla clearly a top performer even with that supportive environment. On to the news then. Of course, today a day worthy of celebration, the huge milestone opening of Gigafactory Berlin, Brandenburg. Tesla now operating Gigafactories on 3 continents. Not only is this going to pave the way for continued aggressive growth from Tesla, growth that a lot of people aren't expecting, and we'll talk more about that in a second, this is going to be a huge benefit for logistics that's going to continue to be underestimated. That'll start to make a difference in the second half of this year, and then it's going to be huge for 2023. We've known this is coming for a long time, but nevertheless, still a little bit surreal to see the first deliveries being driven off the factory floor today. There wasn't a ton of official coverage from Tesla today, no official live stream or anything like that, but a couple of posts on Twitter and Instagram of those first deliveries. Elon thanking Germany on Twitter, the federal chancellor of Germany on hand and sharing some comments at this delivery ceremony as well. And then of course we've got some really good coverage from people that were able to attend this event. There was even a drone flying around through the factory. I'm not sure if that was Tesla's or someone else. I guess I assume Tesla's, but a lot of fun to see some of the things going on in the factory today. Outside of the factory, Elon did give a sort of congratulations and thank you update. Took a few questions, probably about 15 minutes in total. We've got quite a few interesting tidbits from that. I'll play a couple of clips here as well. Unfortunately, I'm not sure exactly where that source material came from. I've seen it on a few YouTube channels and Twitter. I'd love to credit the original source if anyone can confirm that. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a listener. But we'll start off here with a clip and Elon actually talking a little bit about the upcoming master plan, part 3, which we've been talking about over the last week.
But what we're doing here is with every car we make, with every battery we make, we're making the future better. So what you're doing really matters. It makes a difference. I'm sort of working on the master plan part 3, and it's huge. Yeah, it's gonna be good. But a huge part of that is scaling to high volume. So in order for us to really affect the world in a positive way, because we get a lot of press, we get a lot of attention, but if you say how many vehicles have we made as a percentage of total vehicles in the world, because there's 2 billion vehicles in the world, well, so far we've actually are well below 1%. We're not even 0.5%. So it's essential for us to really affect the future in a positive way. We have to make a lot of cars. That's the only way. So, and this was that's why we call it a gigafactory. It's very big. And we're starting off with the Model Y, but we're going to do a number of exciting additional vehicles here. And so I think this overall is just going to be a center of excellence for sustainable energy in general, and it's really going to help the world. So, I look forward to doing it with you. Once again, thanks for everything.
All right, so first off, just wanted to play that because it captures the milestone well. Elon obviously very thankful, excited, in good spirits. He talks about Master Plan Part 3 there, again emphasizing scale. We'll have a little bit more on that in a second. And then importantly, he does also mention starting off with the Model Y, but also expanding to other products. And that could be as simple as talking about 4680 batteries or other vehicles, Tesla Energy, etc. But just nice to see that sort of reaffirmation that Tesla's not done with this first phase of Giga Berlin. Despite these regulatory challenges, it looks like they still intend to continue to build this out. Sure, could just be lip service, but Elon is usually pretty straightforward about those things. Later on, Elon was actually asked again about scale, and someone asked him, best case, in 10 years, how many more gigafactories would there be? Elon paused for a second and said, best case, 10? Then he went on to say that, quote, I think it's aggressive but not impossible that we could do 20 million cars in 10 years, end quote. So I've kind of wondered aloud if Master Plan Part 3 might lead to a change in that target in some way. With Elon's comment here though, it doesn't sound like that'll be adjusted. That does leave me to wonder then, if Master Plan Part 3 is so heavily focused on scale, what else is there to say about specifically scaling vehicles? Obviously AI, that's another area that'll scale dramatically, but for vehicles, what else is there to say that hasn't already been said during Battery Day or a subsequent earnings call or in Master Plan Part 2? I feel like the roadmap for that is already very clearly laid out. So we'll see on that. And then Elon was also asked about expansion, and he said what we've all known, that, quote, the orders we have are well in excess of production, end quote. Then he explained that only once that situation changes, when production finally catches up to orders, quote, then it makes sense to add additional markets and to have additional products, end quote. He did say, though, that they're still working hard on Cybertruck this year to make sure that that is ready for production next year. He also added a salient point that seems to be a very common misperception whenever Tesla raises prices. People complain that that's not accelerating the advent of sustainable energy. Elon put it well here, saying that, quote, our good is a function of how many vehicles we are able to make, end quote. Lower prices doesn't allow Tesla to make any more cars. In fact, higher prices now allow Tesla to invest more aggressively because they've got better cash flow. That'll allow them to produce more cars and get to lower prices sooner rather than later. Tesla charging a higher price now isn't going to do anything to deter them from continuing to drive down the cost curve, which, by the way, will happen through manufacturing, but also through higher utilization because of autonomy. And then Tesla will just keep driving up volume until eventually the supply and demand curves come into balance, creating a much lower price for sustainable individual transportation. So kind of a tangent there, but I've just seen that criticism one too many times in the comments recently. Anyway, in terms of actual production constraints, Elon again noted that there are still some chip shortages. He didn't seem to imply that it was as bad as last year, so things improving there. He then again mentioned that next year probably battery constrained, and then a few years out probably constrained by mining and raw materials, basically a reiteration of what we have heard before. Now, even with those constraints, Elon did talk about growth, and that's the last clip I'll play here. I won't spoil it, but very exciting comment from Elon here.
That in the long grand scheme of things is how many terawatt hours of battery can be produced per year. Our rough calculation is that it's about 300 terawatt hours is needed to transition the world to a sustainable energy economy. There's a lot of batteries, basically. So we want to try to do as much of that as possible. And I think we're actually doing a pretty good job. Like we're growing by, 70, 80% a year on average, and maybe even faster than that in the future. So so that's, I think, the answer to why not more markets and why not more products.
All right, so obviously Tesla talks about the 50% long-term growth target, but it's pretty clear that they think about it in terms of a higher percentage growth rate. I mean, last year vehicle production was up 83%. This year they said they should comfortably exceed 50% again. That should mean at least 1.5 million vehicles. Throw a 75% compound annual growth rate on that for a couple of years. Well, you're almost up to 5 million vehicles in 2024 with that kind of growth. Elon not saying that specific timeline, but saying that the growth could be even better than that. I mean, how much clearer can this be? Tesla can probably miss their growth targets by like half and still be one of the fastest growing companies, maybe the fastest growing company of the size ever. It's so obvious, and yet the consensus at last check at the end of last year for Wall Street was 2.1 million deliveries in 2024, 2.6 million deliveries in 2025. That might be a decent line to bet on if it was only Tesla's production out of China. Even then, I still might take the over. I said it at $1,200, I said it at $700, I'll say it again here at $1,000. Tesla is still very stupidly priced. All right, let's continue. A couple other things that we need to get through here. First, Elon did talk about the new paint colors from Berlin. He said that they'll have a really special red, 13 layers of paint on that. Also a silver with 8 layers, and he said that those should start production in probably a few months, so we'll have that to look forward to. Somebody also asked about FSD beta in Europe. He said that they'll probably be ready to show it to regulators in the EU in maybe 2 to 3 months, but then quite a bit more work, maybe later this year for release in Europe. Wouldn't hold my breath on that. Then he also mentioned that Tesla does have a lot of new products in the works, and specifically he mentioned new versions of the Solar Roof, Powerwall 3, and of course things we know about Cybertruck, Roadster, Semi, etc. So there just continues to be so much to be excited about here for Tesla. All right, moving on then, we do have a couple of updates on Giga Texas as well. Tesla did today officially get approval to host the Texas Giga Fest event, so that should be a go for April 7th then, and hopefully now that that is approved, we can start to see the invite process begin for Tesla sometime soon. The other kind of fun thing from Texas, Sir Tesla on Twitter sharing out a couple of photos of a Texas-made Model Y spotted out in the wild. This was VIN number 508, and you can tell by the first few characters there that it's Austin made. Obviously, we've seen plenty in the Gigafactory parking lot, but always fun to see them out in the wild. Quick update here on Tesla in China as well. Model 3 wait times have extended again. So the standard range Model 3 now estimated 20 to 24 weeks for delivery, the Performance at 16 to 20 weeks. Great to see that continued strong demand, especially in China. All right, next we've got an update on the back and forth between the SEC and Tesla and Elon Musk that we've been talking about a few times over the last few weeks. Today we've got a reply from the SEC. It's pretty lengthy. There's a lot of legal terminology in it. I'll just read a little bit here to kind of get a sense for what that is. And the arguments that both sides are using are starting to move beyond the scope of my understanding. So at a certain point, we've just got to leave it to the courts to decide. And I think we've all got the gist of both sides' arguments. Anyway, part of the reply here from the SEC reads that Musk's motion to quash is procedurally defective and substantively meritless. The SEC issued its November 29, 2021 administrative subpoena to Musk pursuant to its authority under Section 21B of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, Exchange Act, in the course of an investigation not pursuant to the federal rules of civil procedure in the course of litigation. A motion to quash is therefore not a proper procedural vehicle for challenging the validity of the subpoena. Rather, the exclusive method for contesting an administrative subpoena is to file an opposition in a subpoena enforcement action which the SEC has not initiated. Side effects may include being bored by reading the rest of this case. So we won't, and I do apologize for that, but we'll still keep an eye on this for any major developments. The other government-related update here that we have is, as we had talked about a while back, Nancy Pelosi had owned some call options, I think technically her husband, but they had owned some Tesla call options. There was a new filing yesterday that showed that they have now exercised those call options. So 25 call options for 2,500 shares expiring March 18th at a strike price of $500. Since they held them to expiration and exercise, presumably they plan to just keep those shares. All right, last couple of items for today. First, an update on battery maker CATL. We probably should have talked about this yesterday since it was reported on Saturday by Bloomberg, but they're reporting that CATL is looking at locations in North America, with Mexico perhaps being the leading option at this point, for a $5 billion 80 gigawatt hour battery plant. As we had talked about previously, Panasonic also looking at locations in the United States. As for CATL, apparently this plant would build both nickel-based and lithium iron phosphate batteries. Lastly then, just a quick update on the nickel's future contracts on the London Metal Exchange. Sounds like today was the first day of trading that those contracts did not actually hit the trading limits that the LME had put in place. So we can finally see where the price has leveled out to, and it looks like that ended up closing at about $28,000 a ton. Obviously, I would expect continued volatility, and that is still a high price, but certainly better to see that than it stabilizing at $50,000 or something like that. All right, that's where we'll wrap it up for today. But again, just a huge congratulations to the entire Tesla team for the opening and first deliveries at Giga Berlin. Truly a great milestone. And then as always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. Also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And we'll see you tomorrow for the Wednesday, March 23rd episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.